While we wait for all the viewers to enter the Zoom, I want to remind you that Vote 411 is now available. Vote 411 can provide you with information about the candidates you will be voting for and has a printout feature so you can print out your choices and take it with you to the polls. And now for tonight's forum. Good evening. I am Anitra Steele, Chair of the Forums Committee. Welcome to our forum for the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Education. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties, the South Kansas City Alliance, and Alpha Kappa Alpha Advocate for Social Justice Initiative of chapters Beta Omega and Psi Tau Omega. This forum is recorded and will be available on the League's webpage, lwvkc.org, and on YouTube. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved in sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to vote. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you to know the other League members volunteering with me. Stephanie Revels is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Janelle Shue. The public has sent in the questions to the League's website, lwvkc.org. Tonight, we welcome our moderator, Charlie Keegan of KSHB Television. Welcome, Charlie. Take her away.
Thank you so much, Anitra. Thank you all for joining us. I'm delighted to be here and to join you for tonight's forum with the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Education candidates. The Board of Education is a representative body elected by the registered voters of the school district. The board provides governance for the district, as the board is the top elected officials there in the district. The superintendent of schools reports directly to the board. Tonight, we have candidates who are running for the 1st, 3rd, and 5th districts in the school board, as well as at-large school board members. These directors will serve a 4-year term. Our forums normally last about 2 hours. I'm going to ask each candidate the same question. These questions are selected from questions the public submitted to us. The order of candidate responses has been determined by a random rotation and will change for each question. Each candidate has 90 seconds to respond to the question, and then each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement at the end of our forum. All of the candidates running for these seats have been invited and agreed to attend. We welcome the candidates to participate in tonight's forum. So candidates, my ask to you is to please answer the question that we ask, stay on topic. We're not going to give you any time for rebuttals, but if you need to reply to something, you can take up that issue and your 2-minute closing remark at the very end of the forum. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start our questions with our at-large candidates. So Tanisha Ford, you are going to be the first one to answer. And your question number 1, real simple. Introduce yourself. Tell us why you want to serve on the School Board of Education and what qualifications you have to serve or continue serving. And I'll ask that question to each candidate after you, but we'll start with Ms. Ford. Thank you.
Well, my name is Tanisha Ford. I'm currently serving as an at-large board member that is seeking re-election. I am a wife and mom of 2 Kansas City Public School students. I'm a Kansas City native and also former KCPS student myself. Professionally, I've been in the education space my entire career with 16 years of experience in nonprofit leadership and higher education administration. And I used to formally lead a program in the area called Kaufman Scholars. On the board, I get the opportunity to serve as the vice chair. I get to serve as the chair of the finance committee. And I also 2 years ago got the opportunity to serve as the superintendent search committee chair that facilitated the process for our current superintendent. I decided to run because I am an advocate for public education. I believe in this district. I've been around this district. I've seen highs, I've seen lows, and I just am impressed by the growth that we are currently experiencing. I want to see that momentum and that growth continue. I believe that I've learned a lot during my 4 years on my first term. I want to take that knowledge and experience and translate that into becoming an even more effective board member if given a second term. This is a role that I take very seriously. I take a lot of pride in the role. I'm always prepared and equipped. I'm a proven and trusted leader, and I'm just looking for the opportunity to continue my service on this board.
Thank you so much. Joseph Nelson will answer the question now. Joseph, tell us about yourself, why you want to serve on the school board, and what qualifications you have.
Sure, absolutely. Good to see you again, Charlie. My name is Joe Nelson, originally from New York. I moved to Kansas City about 5 years ago. My background professionally, I was in the Navy for 5.5 years active duty, did a few years reserve time after that. And I had a number of different roles and jobs that I won't get into right now. After military service, I went into the corporate world, worked in medical devices in Boston for a few years, then back home to New York, worked on Wall Street for a couple of years until I left for entrepreneurship. And that's what actually brought me to Kansas City during the middle of the pandemic. Ended up loving the city, ended up staying. And the reason I'm running is because I lived through a situation where schools didn't have a bond and they didn't have adequate facilities. So I grew up in that situation, and I just refuse to let that be the case in this new city that I've chosen to live in, and I'm chosen to bring my family to. So in a nutshell, I think that a lot of what's happening is simply not enough. We're making positive trends, but we're talking about single digit increases. And I know there's a storied history in the district, but there's ways to be innovative, and there's ways to not move the needle, but transform education and be the example for the rest of the country.
Thank you, Joe. Next, we'll go to Rita Cortez. Rita, please introduce yourself. Tell us why you want to continue to serve on the Board of Education, and what qualifications you have.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and all of their partners for hosting us this evening. It's always a great opportunity to share with our community why each of us seeks to serve and what we believe the potential for Kansas City Public Schools is. Again, my name is Rita Cortez. I'm running for re-election to represent Subdistrict 1 on the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors. I first had the honor of being elected in 2019 and currently serve as the board chair. I serve because I believe Kansas City cannot thrive, the city that we all talk about, all the great things that happen here. Our city cannot thrive without high quality public schools. And I'm committed to ensuring every student has access to and encouragement toward a quality education. It's that simple, and it's incredibly complicated. I believe we best serve our students, our families, our teachers, our staff, and our community when we center equity in our work at all levels, and we strive to include their broad range of voices in our strategic decision-making. Evaluating data, challenging and refining strategy, and building consensus are among my key skills that I bring to the work of the board. Over the course of my career, and it's been a long one, I've gained valuable experience in finance, law, strategy, leadership, and commercial construction and real estate, all of which have helped me make informed decisions for KCPS. This experience makes me excited to continue working toward a better future for our students and our community.
Thank you, Rita. Bruce Beatty, you're the next one to answer. Introduce yourself, tell us why you want to serve, and what qualifications you have.
My name is Bruce Beatty. I'm running for the Kansas City Public School Board Subdistrict 5. I was born and raised here in Kansas City. I love this city very much. I went to JS Chick and went to Southeast, so I'm a product of the KCPS system. I went off to UMK, University of Central Missouri for my undergraduate, came back, got a master's in finance from Rockhurst. And my career started at the Cooperative Finance Association, which was a subsidiary of Farmland Industries. I then shifted over to the city of Kansas City, Missouri, where I was retired after 33 years there. And all of that experience was in budget, finance, and accounting. I originally worked in the city manager's office, then the finance department, and then back to the manager's office. And so I'm trying to bring all of that experience in budgeting and finance to the school board. There are a lot of things that are happening at the national level that will affect us, and that experience that I have in financial planning would be very beneficial to the school board. One of the reasons why I'm running for the school board is I have 3 nephews living with me, 5, 10, and 11. And I want to be a good role model for them and show them what people can do when given the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Brittany, now it's your turn. Brittany Foley, please introduce yourself. Tell us why you want to serve on the Kansas City Board of Education and what qualifications you have to serve.
Hi, Charlie, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittany Foley. My career, I am in public defense work where I work with individuals who are convicted of capital crime. So all of my clients, they either have execution dates or they're coming up. And my background is really in mitigation, learning the stories and connecting puzzle pieces for my clients. I'm running for school board because I live the consequences that a lot of families in our district have. I got my home in Blue Hills, and then our neighborhood school Truist closed, and my son lost his neighborhood school. The main reason why we got our home was for he could walk to school and to make relationships with friends that he could grow up with. So that moment was a wake-up call that someone with lived experience needs to be in rooms when decisions and financing and budgeting is taking place. As a mother, I want to ensure that no family feels blindsided or unheard. As a public defender, I understand what happens when people are left out. So I want to be on the board as a product of lived experience with a son in the district and many friends who have had that have distrust in the community. And I hope to get there, get my boots on the ground running, and to really show up as an authentic person that represents the greater community for the board of directors.
Thank you so much. I feel like I know you all so well now. Our next question, I have a little bit of setup ahead of it. So listen to that and then we'll get to the question. Joe, you're going to be the first to answer. So just so you know, here's that setup. In April 8th's election, in addition to choosing the school board of directors, voters will be asked to vote on a bond issue to support, quote, constructing, repairing, improving, and equipping new aging public school buildings, including safety and security measures, heating and cooling, systems, roofs, plumbing, and other deferred maintenance. So the $474 million cost will mean an increase in property taxes. And for a home that's about $400,000, they'll pay about $500 more a year. So here's the question. What would you say to empty nesters or anyone else without children in the district to convince them to support a yes vote on this bond issue? Joe Nelson, you'll start.
Absolutely. And that's a great question. And it's absolutely relevant because a lot of what I want to bring to the school board is the fact that the schools aren't just about who's in the schools right now. It's not just about the students that are there. It's not just about the parents and caregivers that are in the enrolled at that time. The schools are the foundation of the community, and it really has a direct impact on the economic growth of a city as well as the public safety. So when we're looking at a record budget for the city of Kansas City, 2.5 billion, and 73% of the general fund is going towards public safety. When you rewind the clock a little bit, you can look back and clock the dates when the school district wasn't accredited and when we weren't getting the funding that we needed. So this bond is long overdue. For every dollar that you put into public education, and this is the updated statistic as of this week, right, from a Nobel laureate, for every dollar you put into public education, you're going to get a return or a savings of anywhere from $16 to $18. So the bond is a tax in name only. The bond is an investment. We have to invest in our city. And you can draw direct correlations to the level of poverty, the wages of the community, and adult earnings and economic growth, as well as public safety and violent crime. So investing in the schools is the answer, whether you have kids now or you have kids in the future that are going to attend.
Thank you, sir. Bruce Beatty, you're going to answer that now next. what would you say to an empty nester or someone without children in the district to convince them to support this bond issue?
What I would suggest is that, or what I would mention is that voting for the bond issuance is an investment into the community. A lot of businesses want a lot of educated workers, and if you have an educated student base from elementary through high school through college, and they stay in this area, a lot of businesses will want to move here. They invest in the community that they're in. And if the community will invest in itself, the businesses will also move here and make things better for the community that we are in, the environment that we're living in, et cetera. And if we get more businesses to move here, they will bring more people in to help share in the cost of that tax burden, and by buying new homes, et cetera. And so that would be one thing I would respond with. Just invest in the community, which is we'd be investing in our students and ourselves.
Thank you, Bruce. Brittany Foley, you're next. What would you say to empty nesters or anyone else without children in the district to convince them to support the school bond question?
Thank you, Charlie. That's a question I've been getting from a lot of folks in the community. And I would say a vote for the bond is a vote for the community and the children that live within it. Kansas City is seeing a lot of good gains, from the Chiefs going up, from new businesses coming to baseball. There's a lot of positive things happening in Kansas City. But how can you say you care about the city if you don't really invest in the schools? A lot of our students tend to stay in Kansas City, and if this bond passes, they have access to better buildings, to better curriculum, so they can get the basic things that they need to be able to be a good product to the neighborhoods and to their environments. They can come off the streets, get jobs, crime goes down, because a lot of crime happens in Kansas City because of opportunity. So if we can invest in our cities with the bond, it will reflect all across. You can see it everywhere, from our homes to crime rates to better looking streets. A vote for the bond is a vote for the neighborhood that you live in. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Brittany. Tanisha Ford, you'll be next to answer. What would you say to empty nesters or anyone else without children to convince them to support this district bond issue?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what I've already heard answered with this question. When we talk about who owns our school district, we're not talking about the school board members. We're not talking about the superintendent of our school. We're not even talking about necessarily the staff or the students. Our school district, in terms of ownership, does belong to our community. And I think it has been noted already that our strong schools do equal strong communities. And we talk about this world-class city that Kansas City aspires to be, with great food and great sports and all these wonderful opportunities that we're trying to invite different businesses into. There's no way for us to be this world-class city without investing in world-class public education. And so by making that investment into our communities and in our schools, we're making an investment in our future workforce. Our young people are brilliant. They are worth every dime that we are able to and willing to invest in them. So whether or not you have that personal connection or not, I do believe that our young people are so deserving of that investment. And I always look to invite community into our buildings. I think that is a great opportunity for them to see what is happening inside of their buildings, to be able to make that personal connection for themselves, whether they have students within the district or not.
Thank you. Rita Cortez, same question. What would you say to someone without children in the district to convince them to support the school bond issue on the ballot this next week?
So, Charlie, the reason that I'm smiling is I am that taxpayer. And I have spent the better part of the last year talking with citizens around Kansas City, parents, teachers, community members, folks who ask all of these questions and more. I would say right now I'm doing about 3 or 4 of those meetings a day, sharing information about the bond issue. The bottom line is what a lot of the other candidates spoke about. What is the city that we envision for ourselves? Is it a city that bypasses our students, or is it a city that embraces and includes our students? Is it a city that looks at our school buildings as community assets, or is it a community that looks at those buildings as belonging to someone that they don't know. I think that the community we talk about in many levels is the community that should embrace that kind of commitment to our students and to our community. In the course of my day, I drive down Warnell Road and I pass more disinvested or closed school sites than open school sites every day. And that's not the community that we talk about when we have the Charlie Hustle Heart and the, all of the great things that are happening in our city. We should have a school system that raises the level of performance in this city.
Thank you so much. Our third question is, how would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board? Rita Cortez, we're starting with you.
So each of us is likely to have our own style. And the beauty of a 7-person board is that each member is an equal partner in this endeavor. So my leadership style is to invest time in getting to know people, understand their motivations, understand where we're going to disagree, and seek points of consensus so we can find ways to work together even in disagreement. That's the nature of the work on a board. So it's not perfect consensus. You don't seek 7-0 votes on everything, but you want to make sure that you have heard your colleagues. You want to make sure that you understand what I think of as the snow globe, right? All 360 degrees of the community and your colleagues, so that when you get to the place of making difficult decisions, and school boards make really difficult decisions sometimes, and you do it with the most knowledge and the ability to make the next decision, and not have one hard decision break a board apart, because that's not healthy for our students, it's not healthy for our school system, and it's not healthy for our community.
Thank you. Bruce Beatty, you'll answer next. How would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board?
You're muted, Bruce.
Bruce is muted.
What I would encourage would be to make sure that we're not going to always agree, and that's a definite fact. That's just not going to happen. But what we would want to do is just be systematic in how we're addressing things. We know there are going to be problems. We need to clearly identify the problem, because that's half the process in reaching a good goal, is identifying what the problem is, and then just work collaboratively with everyone with possible solutions so that we can address that. And then be open to healthy debate, don't attack, and just work things out. I think the board as a whole seems to be a good board, and they're working in the right direction. And I have not seen any disruption or anything like that. And I don't plan on being that disruptive force on the board.
Brittany Foley, we'll ask you the question next. How would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board?
Thank you, Charlie. I think a way that I could foster a collaborative board is, first, we should all be centered on why we're there, why we were voted into the position, and we need to keep the students, family, and the staffs at the forefront of all of our decisions, even when tension gets rough. Right now, I'm the chair of the Kansas City Public Schools District Advisory Committee, the DAC, and I've been the chair there this past year. And we've had times we hit heads. There's times where there's disagreements, but at the end of the day, we realize what we're there, why we're there. We're there fighting for our students. We're there making sure the needs are met from the parent organizations, and that everyone feels heard. Sometimes knocking heads, healthy. If you can do that in a healthy way, it works out. Because I know I've knocked heads a few times with my co-chair, but in the end, we got on the same track and realized we're there for the students. And yeah, we're there for the students, and just keep that in mind. I'm not one who starts problems. I won't be doing that on the board, but yeah, just always show up for our students and do what needs to be done.
Thank you, Brittany. We had a new candidate join the forum, Kelly Thompson. I'll have a couple other people answer this question and then allow you a chance to introduce yourself, but just wanted to acknowledge that I see you here on the panel.
Appreciate that, Charlie. Thank you.
Of course. Tanisha Ford, you're next on the list to answer this question. How would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board?
Yeah, I think I have the privilege of kind of seeing how a board can evolve over time. 4 years ago, when I joined the board, it was a board that wasn't always aligned in how we work together, and how we just saw each other eye to eye. But I think the key to us creating an inclusive environment is kind of the Simon Sinek philosophy of starting with your why. I think what was key for us getting on the same page and becoming more aligned is realizing what we were there for, centering the students in every single one of our decisions. And I think that that is a great place to start. I think you create environments, and leadership helps to do this, where you're able to listen and learn. You're able to share perspectives even when you don't agree. You're able to be respectful even when you don't agree. You realize that once a decision has been made, our board has to support that decision, even if you personally disagreed. We speak with one voice. So that's also a way for you to create that environment of collaboration and inclusion. You also take time, I think, to get to know one another. It's important for board members to participate in workshops and retreats and things like that, where we spend time together, getting to know our personality types, how we work together, what our why is, what our values are, and then also that we have fun together. That's another way that you create those inclusive working environments as well.
Thank you. Joe Nelson, now to you. How would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board?
All right, that is a great question, Charlie. I'll answer it in 3 parts. So I think the first part is one-on-one. So stealing that from my days on Wall Street, the biggest way or the easiest way to get to know somebody is just to sit down with them, have coffee with them, have tea, water, whatever, smoothies down at Ruby Jeans. The best way to get to know somebody is to actually just sit down one-on-one. And I've made that attempt with all the current board members, as well as the majority of the incumbents. Timing is its own thing, but the second part of that is you can't be afraid of conflict. I don't think conflict is a bad thing. It's usually what spawns some of the best ideas and the best collaborations, because folks that are in the room that are passionate about what they believe in, especially if there's even just a slight disagreement, you're not going to have anyone that's going to want to back down, but you have to be able to listen and hear everybody out. And so what might look like conflict is really just a coalition being built. And the last part of that is really understanding that while everyone may not agree, there's only one reason for any of us to be here, and that's to take care of the children that are in our community. We need strong academic outcomes, and if we're not focused and aligned with making sure that that's what we're doing, then we need to adjust.
Thank you, Joe. So Kelly, I want to give you a chance first to introduce yourself, and then I'll ask you that question. You can have a chance to answer it as well, but just get us caught up to speed on who you are, why you want to serve on this board, and what qualifies you to serve.
Sure. Appreciate it. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us and giving us this opportunity to connect with voters. So I'm a proud parent in the district with 2 kids, 2 daughters, a freshman and a second grader. I've been navigating KCPS for nearly a decade. And so I've experienced the district's successes, its challenges firsthand. And quite frankly, not just as a parent, but someone who's deeply invested in schools and our greater Kansas City community. Professionally, I spent nearly a decade on Capitol Hill as a journalist and TV producer. So that taught me, and I developed the skill of asking tough but necessary questions. And so moving back to Kansas City over the last decade, I transitioned and worked in tech and innovation space. And so that was really about building partnerships, shaping effective governance, and driving results. And so I think that's key to being a part of the board. The other thing that I've learned is that real leadership, it takes both compassion and accountability. And so I'm running because I believe that the schools need both.
Thank you, Kelly. And now I'll give you a chance to answer the question that you walked in on there. So how would you foster a collaborative and inclusive environment among your colleagues on the board if elected?
Sure. So I think fundamentally as humans, we all want to be seen and heard. And so I believe creating an environment, conditions where we can have discussion, we can share our unique perspective, and offer feedback. I think all of those are valuable. Each person on the board has a lived experience, has a professional experience that is valuable. And so it is really fundamentally about listening and then acting strategically together, making sure that we have a shared vision, which is educating our kids to build a strong Kansas City and staying focused on what truly matters.
Thank you. We'll move on to our fourth question of the ones that were submitted to us from voters. It says, how would open enrollment, which is allowing students to attend schools in districts other than the district they live in, how would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools? We're going to start with Bruce Beatty on this one.
Right now, we already have open enrollment here. Charter schools are here to stay for the foreseeable future. They're here to stay. Something that open enrollment does to us financially is it dilutes the amount of funds that are available on a per student basis. Because with each school that you have or you're trying to fund, that's an additional administrative overhead that you also have to carry to take care of that particular student. And the more you also have to have additional facilities when you open up another school in the area. And for us at KCPS, we are competing to some degree with the other schools in the district. And right now, the board currently has done a lot of positive things so that we can compete very well. Over the past 5 years, we've gotten our accreditation back, but that's sort of a baseline for where we need to go. We need to do better. I think we can do some additional things. And I took a tour of the schools this weekend, and one of the things was we're not perfect, but we're getting there. So that's the effect. It's be the liquidation, the sort of the sharing of funds is what would be the problem right now.
Again, we're using a random order for our questions, but Kelly Thompson, you're next here. How would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools?
Sure. So I do believe in families having choice. We have charters, we have private, we have public schools. Open enrollment is really about diverting critical funding away from our public schools. And it's funding that it directly supports our students, teachers, classrooms. And so when a student leaves for another district, that's disruptive to the learning environment. And we're losing per student funding that way, which it really kind of dilutes and diminishes our ability to invest in resources and staff and programming. And so I think that this is a fundamental issue that really hits at the budget and the quality of the education that our students are receiving at KCPS.
Thank you. Joe Nelson, you're next. How would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools?
Yeah, there's really only two ways to look at this. It would be a disaster. So school choice is a tagline, and it's meant to create false expectations about what's really happening behind the scenes. So choice in and of itself sounds great. The principle is sound, but the way that we actually execute on that choice is key. And right now, the way that the charter system is set up is not equitable when you look at the standards that are being maintained by the public schools and what's being required of the charter schools. And so open enrollment is just an expansion of that. And so you're going outside of what we already have, which is Kansas City Public Schools, 14 other districts within Kansas City, Missouri, and now you're opening that up to your surrounding suburb areas. And all it is a logistical nightmare and an operational nightmare. When we're talking about efficiency, when you're just talking about transportation alone, right? And looking at what the actual language of the law that's being put into place, right now we're still in session. And so I would be advocating for us as a district and parents and the community to be up in Jeff City as often as possible to let them know the impact, the actual impact of what these changes would have, not just on families, but on the community as a whole.
Thank you, Joe. Brittany Foley, you're next. How would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools?
Open enrollment, like when I talk to people in my neighborhood, a lot of them think it's a policy of freedom and choice, but it's going to deepen the inequity that we already have, and it's going to weaken our neighborhood schools. So open enrollment is always a no for me. Um, it's going to drain the resources and the funds that we have now. A lot of dollars would potentially be leaving KCPS because I'm going to be honest, they're not going to be coming here. A lot of students are going to be finding their way out, and we don't need those dollars leaving with our students because the students left behind are Black, brown, working class, immigrant, and special needs students. We need to keep those dollars in KCPS as possible. I live in a big neighborhood in Kansas City, Blue Hills. It stretches from 47th to 63rd, and it's bound by Prospect and Paseo. We have no neighborhood school. We have King, but a lot of our students go there, and if they don't go there, they're going to the charters. So my kids in my neighborhood aren't going to be going to Lee Summit or these other schools. So open enrollment is a no. We need to keep our dollars in Kansas City Public School to help our kids first. It's an equity problem, and I'm not for it.
Thank you. Rita Cortez, we'll go to you next. How would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools?
So I think there are a lot of unintended consequences in addition to the intended consequences, right? I think one of the intended consequences, looking at it from the perspective of the legislature, is to create more chaos. And if you create more chaos in public education, you bolster your case that public education shouldn't exist for the long term. When this session was open today, it was led by a statement about the importance of an educated populace and to maintain a healthy democracy. I think that chaos intentionally undermines that objective. I think that another unintended consequence is that you'll see more money spent outside the classroom in response to open enrollment. Every district will have to engage in much broader marketing. It's the same kind of consequences that we've seen in Kansas City Public Schools with the presence of charters for the last 20 years, right? Increased transportation costs, increased marketing costs, increased public relations costs, all sorts of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of impacting students, but every dollar that comes out of the classroom has a direct impact on our students. The last thing that I would share is I hear a lot from parents within our boundaries about the confusion that the existing choice system imposes and how difficult evaluating options against each other can be because of the lack of coherence of the system. Open enrollment just increases that challenge for families.
Thank you much. Tanisha Ford, how would open enrollment affect Kansas City schools?
Sure, I agree again with much of that I've already heard. This bill is one that we have been following since its inception. I do think that this will be challenges with our funding. I do think this is a bill that will divert funds away from Kansas City Public Schools, public education broadly. I do have concerns about the inequities that it will create. I do have concerns about the opportunities and possibilities for discrimination of students when you have to think about which students will be accepted and which students will not be. I think this will breed even further competition between our public education system. And I also think that it's going to be something that's damaging to public schools and public education generally. And so, just as we should be down in Jeff City lobbying against this, I think it's important for us to continue to have our lobbyists down in Jeff City. We have been partnering with organizations like the Cooperating School Districts of Greater Kansas City. We have been working with the Missouri School Boards Association, all entities that are working in partnership with Kansas City Public Schools to try to prevent open enrollment from becoming a reality. So I am definitely concerned about what this can mean for our school district.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. All right, we'll move on to our fifth question, and Brittany Foley, you'll be the first to answer this question. Currently, the Federal Department of Education is being downsized and may be eliminated. What effect would that have on Kansas City schools?
Thank you, Charlie. I believe the effect is we won't be focusing on those federal dollars coming in. So we're going to have to find ways that we can work with the community to get more funding and really have a mutual aid relationship with people, see what they have and see how they can help out our students. I think the biggest thing that just raised an eyebrow for me is thinking how our Title I and our SPED students will be impacted if these changes in Washington D.C. happens. It's something I will keep an eye on about like how I can continue to support the Title I schools in my district and across KCPS. And a lot of parents that have SPED and special education plans, a lot of those parents come up to me already having issues with them in the district. And I just want to be an advocate and on their side to see how can I make sure their needs are met if we are expecting a loss in funds. I know the current board is doing a really good job with anticipating what we're going to be without. So I'm happy that the current board is thinking about that. But my major concern is Title I schools and specialized education plans.
Thank you, Brittany. We'll next move on to Rita Cortez. What effect would downsizing or eliminating the Federal Department of Education have on Kansas City schools?
So I think at the headline level, to be determined, because I think part of what's happening in Washington is intended to divert us from focusing on the programs that are administered by the Department of Education and getting lost in the headline of should there or should there not be a Department of Education. As Ms. Foley mentioned, there are a lot of programs that are supported. Funding comes to the state and then it's distributed at the state level that impact a wide variety of our students, including our English language learners and some of our socio-emotional health programs that support mental health and trauma-informed supports across the school systems. Those are all federally funded programs. So the short answer is we do know that we have to plan for what we don't know and keep an eye not just on what happens in Jeff City and what happens in Kansas City, but what happens in Washington. Many of us participate in calls with national partners that Kansas City Public Schools participates with to ensure that we understand not just what's happening with the headline, but which departments are each of those programs going to be administered by in the absence of a functioning Department of Education, and how can we effectively advocate for the students that we serve to be considered in those next iterations of funding streams.
Thank you. Tanisha Ford, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, like
What
Ms.
effect
Foley mentioned.
what effect would downsizing or eliminating the Federal Department of Education have here in Kansas City?
Thank you. Like Ms. Foley mentioned, the board with our superintendent and administration, since November, when these were just kind of thoughts and ideas, we were already beginning to have these conversations about what ifs. And like most people, I certainly have concerns about the programs that are administered through the Department of Education, thinking about our Title I programs and funding, our Title II, which is for PD for teachers, our Title III, which is for our English language learners, IDEA, our Head Start and early childhood programs, even our nutrition services. All of those are programs that are administered under the Department of Education that would be harmful to us if not administered in the appropriate way. Like some of the conversations that are happening externally, there are concerns about the inequities that might also persist when it's more state level oversight versus federal oversight. So I think as a district, we're just continuing to monitor, pay attention. Our legal department is researching, partnering with other school districts, paying attention to the Council of Great City Schools, paying attention to the National School Board Association. So we are listening and learning, and that we are ready to act when some of these decisions are made, if they are actually made and passed through Congress.
Thank you. So Kelly Thompson, what effect would downsizing or eliminating the Federal Department of Education have on Kansas City schools?
Sure. So I am deeply concerned around this. I believe that scenario building is important. And so, as others have said, who sit on the board, I think it's critical that we do play out certain scenarios so that we can get a handle on what programs will be affected and how we can address that. There are, as Tanisha just said, English language learners, our pre-K programs, our food programs, those would all be affected with the loss of funding. And so we need to look to, we need to advocate at the state level, we need to look to partnerships and at the local level to make sure that these resources do persist. We're going to have to get creative, but we cannot allow our children to not have these basic necessary elements to their education.
Thank you. Bruce Beatty, we'll come to you next. What effect would downsizing or eliminating the Federal Department of Education have on Kansas City schools? Bruce, you're still on mute.
So you have to hit the button before I start talking. The effect that I see is, or what I think will happen, we don't know. In the short version is we really don't know what the total effect will be. Some things were done, but there wasn't a plan, nor was there any scheduling or trying to understand what was done or what the Board of Education was doing. So the overall effect, we don't know. We can only speculate. In looking at some of the things behind the scenes, it looks like it may affect some of our funding, which is very bad for us because KCPS has to educate everyone. We don't get a choice. If the student is in our district, we have to take care of that. And a lot of those basic needs are taken care of by, as was mentioned before, a lot of the title programs that we get funding for. So it would hurt a lot of our early education programs. Those who are just starting out, who are trying to get assimilated into the education process, it would negatively impact them, as well as those, we have a lot of students who are very transient, so it would also affect them. Trying to keep them at the same school every day would become a little more difficult to do.
Thanks, sir. Joe Nelson, you're last here. What effect would downsizing or eliminating the Federal Department of Education have on Kansas City Public Schools?
Yeah, so the long and short answer is there should be no impact. Now, is that a little bit pie in the sky? I don't think so. We don't have a choice, right, of whether or not we need to provide the adequate resources and the adequate funding and the adequate processes to make sure that our education system is functional. So the fact that Well, first of all, federal funding makes up the least amount of most public school funding, right? But because of the way that the funding is set up, it impacts very specific areas, very intentionally so, the way it was designed. So you're talking about your free and reduced lunch population, which is we're well over 90% for KCPS, right? You're talking about your students that have disabilities. We're talking about teacher training, right? And we already have a teacher shortage, so that potentially would exacerbate what we're already dealing with. And then, as was mentioned a few times, it would definitely hurt our homeless population, students that are having housing instability. But I'm going to take a little bit from my military training. We should always have a plan on the books. These are not abstract numbers. We know how much money we need, and having a single point of failure for a lot of these programs is poor planning. So we need to build we should already have these relationships. And if elected, that's what I've already started to do, is meet with a lot of these folks around the community and see where we can plug the holes and fix and make sure we have something solid in place.
Thank you all for your answers. We'll move on to the sixth question now in our forum. And Kelly, we're going to come to you first. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions in the classroom?
Sure. So I do believe that cell phone usage is an issue in the classroom. There are, we had another candidate forum kind of pull apart two things here. One, there's cell phone usage, and two, there's technology in the classroom. And so cell phone usage, I do believe, is a distraction. We need to make sure that our students are focused on learning and using technology as a learning tool, not spending time on social media or texting their parents, quite frankly, in the classroom. What we need to focus on is how do we get them focused on technology like AI to use as a tool to help boost their learning environment, making sure that they're becoming critical thinkers and that they know how to use technology, not just depend on technology for the answers. So, I hear a lot of stories about how technology in the classroom is being used to actually answer questions, to actually do the work. And that's the piece that we need to really look at to make sure that they're becoming critical thinkers.
Thank you. Brittany Foley, we'll come to you next. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions?
Thank you, Charlie. I personally believe that cell phone use should be used as a minimum in class, unless, you're working on something for a project. But I do know a lot of parents, with everything going on with the world, with school shootings, disasters, want to have that connection with their child while they're in school. So I see that, one, we need to make sure that, you're not messing around with your cell phone. But then again, parents are in touch with their kids. So I always advocate for a clear and consistent policy for that. And then, like Ms. Thompson said, our last forum, they're talking about technology use in class. I'm a millennial who's been through technology to see how it changed. Our kids need to have access to technology in the class, and they need to know how to use it. They need to know how to use the tablets, their laptops, things like that. So I'm a big proponent for having technology in class. I really enjoy the iSparks class that the kids takes. And the kids need to learn how to use those resources, but then again, not to depend on that to find the answers or to use AI to find an answer for them. We know AI is here, so we need to teach our kids how to use it effectively and not to depend on it. We need to teach our kids how to research and find answers themselves and not to rely on the system to get them something that's pretty much the same and used over. I know some kids don't even change their answers for it.
Okay, thank you. Joe Nelson, we'll come to you next. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions?
Yeah, I really think we should lean into that. There's a lot of ways to address the concerns that a lot of parents have, as well as use this as an opportunity to really create something new and create policies that make more sense. If you're actually in the classroom, and I remember this from my time being an academic coach on both sides of the state line when I first got here, and even this past week, I observed some teachers as they were working, and if you talk to just about any teacher, especially as you start going to middle school and up, it's a losing battle to try and fight with students over their phones. It's more important to engage them with the content and the material, and I think it's important to actually use the phone or any other device in the classroom. There's a supercomputer at their fingertips, right? Now it's important to foster that critical thinking, but the level of thinking can be so much higher because the answer is at their fingertips. It's not enough just to get the answer, right? You have to be able to explain it, and you have to be able to understand how that answer was derived. And so no amount of punching anything into a calculator or a computer or an AI, you can spit out an answer right or wrong, but if you can't tell someone how you got to that answer, you're still not achieving your academic outcome. So we need to be really creative, and all the social media and things like that can be blocked. We already have that technology. So I think it's a losing battle. We need to integrate it as much as we can.
Rita Cortez, will come to you next. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions?
So I would really encourage our audience and our candidates to take a look at the presentation that took place at our board meeting last week. The Chief Technology Officer provided actually a really detailed roadmap of how our technology team is thinking about and the questions that we need to engage our entire community about in advancing policy around AI and advancing management of technology in buildings and in classrooms. We are effectively a one-to-one district where all of our students have devices provided by the school system. Those we're actually in a replacement cycle for that technology. And so, making it less necessary for students to have immediate access to their personal phone as opposed to the academic device that they've been provided to support the work of the teachers in the classroom. The horizon to work out a policy around technology, to advance policies around technology, is something that takes a lot of extensive and deep conversation with all of the constituencies that are impacted. And that work has been laid out for how that can be pursued. The second thing is, and I think Mr. Nelson referenced it, using technology to manage technology. We do have improving tools daily, and those continue to be implemented.
Thank you. Bruce Beatty, we'll come to you next. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions? And you are on mute.
Yeah, I saw that time. I think initially we need to just make sure we have a good technology policy that we can reference when dealing with personal devices of phones and personal tablets. The devices that the students have at their disposal, it does have a lot of restrictions, so they can't wander off during class time to do things that they shouldn't be doing. But in terms of their personal devices, I think we should limit that as much as we can. In talking with some parents, I do understand that they want to be in touch with their child all the time, or at least have access to them. I think having access to them is the phrase they used. And so we just need to be cognizant of the parents' want and need to have that access without being disruptive to the teachings that are going on in the classroom as a whole. So I think we should limit the personal devices, and the technology policy should pretty much dictate and lay that out for us.
Thank you. Tanisha Ford, we'll come to you lastly here. How should the district address concerns about screen time and digital distractions in the classroom?
Yeah, so I agree with that reference to the technology presentation that we were given as a board 2 weeks ago. I was actually really inspired and impressed by the way the district is forward thinking as it relates to technology and artificial intelligence. How they are considering safety, security, usage, all the things that we're talking about in this conversation. The technology team is already leaps and bounds ahead. But I would agree with many of the sentiments that I think technology is here to stay, and it could absolutely be used as an effective tool to improve and enhance the learning experience. And so that is how I think we should be looking at technology in the classroom. I do think that there are some great opportunities for us to do a little bit more engagement on this topic. So engaging with our families around the topic, I think would be really helpful. Engaging with our teachers about what are some of their thoughts and what are some of the things that they are seeing as it relates to technology in the classroom. And then we use that information to further enhance and improve our technology policy and also what's listed and written out and what students are held accountable to in our code of conduct.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our seventh question. And Joe Nelson, we're going to start with you on this one.
All right.
What is your stance on funding for arts, music, and sports programs?
Yeah, I mean, 1,000% yes, and then some. Really, when you look at the academic outcomes in any category in any industry, as you go up to higher education levels, the folks that always excel, even in the engineering and STEM fields, have a strong arts background. And it's not enough, going to the Naval Academy. A big part of just being accepted in there is being a whole person, right? You can't just have just the sports or just the arts or just the academics. You have to have all of these things and be versed in all of them in some level and way. And so having access to more opportunities has been part and parcel in what has helped the district grow these past few years. Dr. Collier came from the arts, right? And she's excelling. She's making sure that, especially at the younger level, grade levels, that there's arts, that there's music. And we're seeing the results in improved English, reading, math. And as you continue to expand on that, it's only going to get better. So I want, yes, more. And the only thing I'll add to that is that if we're going to implement something at one school, it needs to be implemented at every school, regardless of if it's a neighborhood school, signature school. There should be no differentiation.
Thank you. Brittany Foley, we'll come to you next. Where do you stand on funding arts, music, and sports programs?
Fund it. I'm all for that. I love what Dr. Collier has done. My son is now playing the tuba. He's not sounding like Earth, Wind, and Fire yet, but hopefully he's gonna get there soon. So I'm happy that she brought that into the classroom. I think it's a great thing for our kids to have, you know? I'm a big proponent of keeping kids in something so they stay out of other things. You see what being in the arts does to our kids. You see them perform. Tomorrow, Southeast has a fashion show at 2. So if you guys are free, go to it. There's fashions in our school, and I just love to see all the creativity. It makes me giddy seeing how our students create things. Just at the board meeting not too long ago, each board member got a drawing from the students, and seeing all of that talent that we have in the district, it needs to be nurtured. So I'm all for sports and arts. Keep it coming. It does great things for our students. It helps them in the classroom. It helps them regulate their emotions. I'm a big proponent for it, and I'm happy that KCPS has it.
Thank you very much. Kelly Thompson, we'll come to you next. What is your stance on funding for arts, music, and sports programs?
Fully supportive. It's not a nice to have. It is absolutely an essential part of our education. There are the academic benefits, social emotional benefits. I can tell you firsthand that music absolutely has played a critical role in the development of my own child's academic performance. I saw a student go from being disengaged, coming back from the pandemic, to having music and using music as a way to build confidence and to come back to the classroom full of people and to develop and grow leaps and bounds. That's what arts can do. It can bolster that confidence and give our students the ability to engage academically at a level that is beyond what they would be capable to do without it. This is really about developing the human, not just these individual items. This is the whole person.
Thank you very much. Tanisha Ford, we'll come to you next. Where do you stand on funding arts, music, and sports programs?
Yes, yes, and yes. As an art child myself, participating in band all throughout school and also choir, I certainly can see the impact to academics. There's certainly a correlation there, improvement in reading and writing and math. There's all the data that suggests that there is a correlation. So I am in full support. And then also just seeing again the benefits to my own child who was playing the violin. He is has his violin downstairs. He's practicing every day. They have a choir concert where they get, or a music concert where they're going to be performing at the Kaufman Performing Arts Center. I just know that it does wonders for children in terms of their confidence. When talking about sports, what it does for their sportsmanships. Dr. Collier is big on experiences that spark joy. I think all three of those areas certainly spark joy. So I am really proud of her leadership in that area of prioritizing arts and music and sports. Is something that I will always support for children within Kansas City Public Schools. The district had a district-wide art fair last night at Paseo High School. So there's a lot of wonderful things that are happening throughout the district. And I can assure you they are not as selected schools. We've made sure that those things are available at all schools. So I'm really proud of that.
Thank you very much. Bruce Beatty, you're next. Where do you stand on funding sports, music, and arts programs within the school district?
Again, I have to echo what everyone's saying. It's a yes, yes, and yes. These areas build character. They build team leadership. They also teach cooperation. Having played sports and music, it also helps develop your math skills. You have to keep beat when you're playing in the band. At a higher level, it does keep the kids busy, and it also helps them burn energy. So you're happy about that as well. But the biggest thing that I've seen for a lot of the youth that I've worked with is it teaches patience. You have to be able to control your emotion and outburst and sort of control your mental focus as you're playing a lot of the sports and playing music. So the biggest thing for me is teaching math. It helps with the math, helps with the patience, helps burn energy, and keeps the kids focused. It helps build their focus.
Thank you, Bruce. Rita Cortez, you're last to answer this question. What is your stance on funding for arts, music, and sports programs?
So I think it's essential that we not only fund music and sports and arts programs, but that we fund quality programs. I think one of the biggest challenges in a district with resource constraints, like every district, is making sure that when we do it at the best of our ability. One of the things that we haven't talked about is the impact on attendance. We know that we struggle with attendance in secondary schools, and the things we're talking about, arts and music and sports, are huge motivators for students to come to school. And that helps them progress toward graduation. It helps develop those executive functioning skills that are so necessary for college and career readiness. As Bruce's wife can attest, I probably wouldn't have finished high school but for basketball, because it motivated me to go to school on the days when I could think of a million other things to do. The other thing that I think we could talk about is the role of the bond in the impact on our arts our athletics and our music. Part of what the bond resources will be used for is to ensure that we have spaces in our buildings where our students can engage in band and orchestra instead of being on the stage of the, in a closet somewhere, or being in a lunchroom that had to be converted for that purpose. So there are a lot of ways that we could benefit our kids with these programs.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the 8th question now in our forum. We're going to start with Tanisha Ford. Here's the question. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs? Why or why not?
As a former leader of a scholarship program that was all about creating opportunities for young people to pursue post-secondary education, I absolutely support expanding career and technical education programs. I think the world has expanded quite a bit, and it is more open and accepting for students pursuing options that might not necessarily be 2-year, 4-year traditional college. And so the more that we can create these opportunities for students to engage in real world learning, gaining certifications, being able to enter the workforce immediately, creating pipelines to work for programs with the city. I think we're better setting students up for success, and we're creating a number of different pathways for them to pursue options for them to be successful in their lives and in their careers. So I'm fully in support of that. I am looking forward to the passage of our bond, where we will be able to move our career and technical programs from manual to Central High School. I think that's going to be a wonderful opportunity and way for us to bring some new life into those programs, expand the programs, and then also utilize Central High School in a different way. It's centrally located, and so I think it also creates opportunities for us to bring more of the community into that space. So fully supportive and looking for all the ways that we can expand CTE.
Great, thank you so much. Rita Cortez, we'll come to you. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs?
I'm really proud to have been part of a board that over the last 6 years has really been committed to the expansion of those programs. Dr. Mark Bedell made that a priority to kind of bring order, bring more purposefulness to those programs. And under the leadership of Chris McNeil, I believe it's Dr. Chris McNeil now, seen those programs grow in their partnerships. This is a great place where we can build much deeper and much broader partnerships with the business and civic community for the benefit of our kids. And I think it's a place where we can expand our programming without having to reallocate resources, but really to bring in new resources in support of our kids. Teach them more of the skills of entrepreneurship, which I believe is going to be essential as we progress into this, the next decades. The ability to move from one career to another with a core set of skills, and to be able to envision how to apply those skills in unique ways. But I really think that every student should graduate both college and career ready, right? It's not an either or, it's an and. And that's really, I think, a continued focus of Dr. Collier and her team. And we have seen great progression over the course of the past few years in the number of students participating in programs and obtaining certifications that will allow them to do that.
Thank you very much. Bruce Beatty, we're coming to you next. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs?
Yes, I do. I support it wholeheartedly. When kids graduate from, or when students graduate from high school, they have several options. They can either go to college, move out of their parents' house, or basically enter a trade itself. And right now, we have the collective we, Kansas City KCPS. We have a lot of pathways so that as you're in high school and you're working on the various careers that they have available, they have a culinary program that I thought was very interesting to watch them work. When they graduate high school, they have an ability to go into, and they may not be an Iron Chef, but they'll be farther along than the rest of us. So seeing that career path and development be there, it looks great. Also, when we're looking at some of the technical, talking to some of the business leaders in the area, getting people involved with the construction trades. And so developing that and providing that opportunity while they're in high school, they'll be able to earn a little extra money while they're learning a trade. But then once they graduate, they'll have several options available to them to move forward and be beneficial to the community.
Thank you, Bruce. Joe Nelson, you're next. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs at KCPS?
I do, and I want to add a little bit to that. So I think it's super important to have at least 3 paths that once you graduate from high school, you're either going into a trade that you've already started to earn credits for, you're already going into a college career that you've already started to earn credits towards, or you're just venturing out on your own or in some combination of those two with an entrepreneurial mindset and an innovative and creative thinking strategy where you're actively looking for ways to solve problems. And I think a big part of that is codifying a lot of the partnerships that we talk about. So again, we have so many resources in Kansas City. Some would even argue too many resources, but they're not codified, they're not organized, and there's no central location that makes sure that every student is exposed to every single opportunity. So it's all about making those connections in the community. So not only are we codifying these relationships, we're actually mandating that the companies and the trades and the unions that are here have to provide internships, have to provide opportunities, and are working with our curriculum directors to make sure that the problems that we're presenting in the classroom are real world problems that they can look at and walk down the street and see that it makes sense to them. So having that broad exposure, and a lot of the union trades give college credits. So we need to expand and just expose.
Thank you. Kelly Thompson, you're next. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs?
Absolutely. There are multiple pathways to success. And as I understand it, our community here in Kansas City has a hard time filling jobs with educated and skilled people. And I think that this is a pathway. It strengthens our city, our community, and it allows for students to explore different opportunities. Yes, college readiness, but also there are skills in the culinary arts, construction, computer science. These are areas that are exciting and that some of our students really are very interested in. And we need to make sure that we're providing an opportunity for them to explore those and that we're giving the proper resources there to expand that.
Thank you so much. Brittany Foley, you're last to answer this question. Do you support expanding career and technical education programs at KCPS? Why or why not?
Yes, I support expanding the CTE trades. I really look forward to this bond passing and the building of the new center at Central. I believe that the trade it's a popular thing for our students now. I spoke to a student who's at Lincoln, hopes of going to college, but is utilizing the CTA center to work in the construction program. So this is making our students really marketable when they're going out into the world. And it can be an option for students who maybe don't want to go the traditional 4 or 2 year college route. And it will produce workers who are ready to come out of KCPS and be able to work work for the small businesses and be able to provide for their families or whatever they may want. And I think this will build trust with the community again. Once we nurture up different partnerships we have, our graduation rates are so high now. They're getting higher every year. So if we produce kids to go to the CTE center, they come out, they're accepting jobs, and they're ready to go with their trade certificate. It just creates a positive flow, and we know that we're doing something right with our students. And it would make us the choice when people are moving in. It's something like, hey, KCPS has this new center. I may want to enroll my child there. So I do support it, and I'm very excited for it.
Thank you. Bruce, you'll be the first to answer this new question. In some areas, the 10 commandments are required to be posted in every classroom. In other areas, chaplains are being used as school counselors. Would you support either of these plans in Kansas City? Why or why not?
Say that question again for me.
In some areas, the 10 commandments are required to be posted in every classroom. In other areas, chaplains are being used as school counselors. Would you support either of those plans in Kansas City? Why or why not?
Me, myself, even though I'm a very religious person, I think there's a place for religion. But when you put particular religions into the school, it opens the door for which one do you use. I'm all for the positive narrative that the 10 Commandments give. And if it's not in the 10 Commandment form, I would be very supportive of using that narrative in the district itself. But all in all, it sounds great as long as it's my religion. But if it's not my religion, people tend to take a little sideways glance at it. In terms of chaplains, I know a lot of people who are very religious, who are counselors. So because they are a chaplain or other religious official, to say they could not be counselors, I think that would not be fair to them because of their career choices. So yes, the 10 Commandments, if in a different narrative, and the chaplain, if that's just one of their additional areas, but they're a counselor, I don't see why they couldn't be a counselor.
Thank you. Brittany Foley, we'll come to you next. Would you support either posting the 10 commandments in every classroom or using chaplains as school counselors in KCPS? Why or why not?
Good question. Our public schools, I mean, we must serve all students, and regardless of their faith as well. And our classrooms are so diverse. Um, they include many students of different religious backgrounds. I have neighbors who are Muslim, Hindu. It's so diverse. Posting one certain religious text, um, that's something I'm not in support of because we're just so different. One child may not be a Christian, and that's okay. We shouldn't just focus on one thing. I feel like that's exclusion on everything. Like I'll say it over and over. I'm all for equity and inclusion, and I don't want to excuse other students who may have a different religious belief. We're all different. I could be in support of having counselors that are chaplains or from a religious background. I feel like that's equity as well. If a child would rather talk to someone who's a chaplain, maybe we can have a connection in the community with their own chaplain or one that we trust to come into to the school. It's not something that it's same for all. And I think that's something we can talk about like on on an individual happening. But yeah, I don't want to have one thing. We need to be inclusion of all religions, and we can have counselors on specific needs of students, whatever makes them comfortable in school.
Thank you. Kelly Thompson, we'll come to you next. Where do you stand on posting the 10 commandments in every classroom and using chaplains as school counselors at KCPS?
Yeah. So our public schools need to be safe, inclusive, safe and inclusive spaces where all of our students feel supported. To choose in this instance, Christianity as a specific focus does not allow for students from different backgrounds, different religions, to feel that they are seen and appreciated and that their view is respected in the classroom. And so I believe that our public schools need to be open places where we don't see one specific kind of religion being present in the classroom.
And how about the chaplains as school counselors?
Yeah, thank you. I think if a person can meet the child in a space that is not specific to a religion or denomination, then I think that's okay as long as they are qualified to do that work.
Understood. Thank you. Joe Nelson, we'll come to you next. Would you support either putting the 10 Commandments in every classroom or hiring chaplains as school counselors at KCPS? Why or why not?
Yeah, my answer to both is yes and okay, and I'll expand on it. So when we're looking at I hate drawing on the military a lot, but the military has a great model for the way that religion is administered to the entirety of the body. And so, if we're going to have the Ten Commandments in the classroom, we need to have excerpts from the Torah. We need to have uh, pieces of the Quran. So if we're not going to do all, and all means all, then no, we shouldn't do this. But I also think it's a yes and because it's an opportunity for the students to engage in conversation and learn about one another in ways that they may not already know or be exposed to. And so the military does a great job of that. Every chaplain is able to provide services to almost every religion and denomination. And if they don't have that capacity, they have resources in the community that they can draw upon to make that happen. And to answer the question about the counselor piece, it's a yes and. Chaplains are trained in a lot of great skills. I say and because it can't just be counselors. There's a lot of mental health and wellness certifications that go much further than just counseling. So yes, we need as many resources as we can get, but it needs to be, and we need to get some more, and we really need a mental wellness advisory committee to help us make some of these decisions.
Thank you. Rita Cortez, we'll come to you next. Where do you stand on the 10 Commandments being required to be posted in every classroom and using chaplains as school counselors at KCPS?
So whenever I hear the question about the posting of the 10 Commandments, it sounds pretty darn performative to me, as opposed to something that has depth and grounding. What is it that we're trying to accomplish with our kids? My uncle, who is a longtime multicultural educator, and I have been having this dialogue for many, many years. Which version of the 10 Commandments are we posting? Even in the Judeo-Christian tradition, there are different versions of the 10 Commandments. So to Mr. Nelson's point, if we can't even figure that out, how are we going to be inclusive? How are we going to create spaces of human dignity for all of our students? So I think that rather than focus on the 10 Commandments, we ought to focus on creating schools and classrooms that focus on the dignity of every individual, that create common agreements within schools and within classrooms for how we're going to engage each other, how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to engage the world. With regard to chaplains, I heard the question a little bit differently, as in, will we be mandated to have chaplains in our school systems? And that would be a hard no for me, because I think there's a big difference between someone choosing the path of being a counselor and having the broad skill set that requires, as opposed to someone of a particular faith tradition being imposed on a public school building or classroom. I think of it more, as a have to, as opposed to a choice.
Thank you for that. Yeah, explaining the question and how you took it. Tanisha Ford, we'll end up with you here. Where do you stand on being required to put the 10 Commandments in every classroom and using chaplains as school counselors at KCPS?
So I answer this question from a background of somebody who's actually very Christian and extremely faith-filled and religious to a certain degree. But I do believe that we are Kansas City Public Schools. That means we are a public school district. We are not private. We do not have any religious affiliation. And because our responsibility is to be inclusive to all students, I do not believe that classrooms are a space to have things that are limited to just one faith or belief. I think when you start bringing in that conversation, you're inevitably going to exclude somebody's faith. And so I don't believe that we should go down that road. And I think we should just kind of focus on creating environments that are true to fashion in public education, that are inclusive to all children. I would be supportive, though, of us of students being able to facilitate groups that are faith-based, that they start up, that they facilitate, that provides environments for them to be expressive in terms of their faith in the school environment. I am absolutely supportive of that. And I think the chaplain question, I think that that's something that could be explored if it's a non-denominational chaplain. I'm thinking about hospitals that they provide, wisdom and counsel, but it comes from a faith and encouraging and inspiring space, but it's not necessarily tied to any one faith or religion. I could be in support of that.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to our 10th question, all these coming from the public. We're going to start with Rita Cortez on this one. What types of support should be given to those schools which are struggling with academic performance?
So I would suggest that the framework that is in place today, right, the equity framework that KCPS uses for resource allocation, tries to take that statement into account. Where are the schools where we see underperformance or challenges? How do we provide full resources to every school and additional resources to schools where we need to move the ball forward? We see that sometimes in schools that have very high mobility rates, where we have students who cycle through. We've had schools in years where we have over 100% mobility rate in a school. That doesn't mean that every student changed, but it means that there were so many changes that there were effectively classrooms are constantly changing. So yes, I think the framework that's currently used for class size, the framework that's currently used for ensuring that we provide additional reading interventionists or academic supports, academic coaches in buildings that face those challenges persistently, that we ensure that we have adequate supports. Some of those come from Title I resources that people talked about earlier. So as we navigate the challenges with the federal government and some of the chaos that comes out of that, we're going to have to ensure that we continue to invest in those resources in our schools.
Thank you, Rita. Tanisha Ford, you're next. What types of support should be given to schools which are struggling with academic performance?
I would agree with Rita's approach to grounding our school district in our equity policy, which is 0.0. It is foundational to all of our other policies and means that students get the resources that they need in order to be successful. We currently have a tiered model that we utilize. It's kind of based off of like a red, green, yellow kind of system that allots different funding, different resources, and different mechanisms for schools that need additional resources. So I would just say we need to just continue to build and strengthen our current system. We have already invested over the last few years in things like high dosage tutoring, reading interventionists, math interventionists. We provide wraparound services to make sure that students are having what they need to support their experiences outside of their classrooms while they're at home, making sure that those fundamental needs are also met. So I would say, again, to continue to build upon our current system, but then overall, we should be pushing that all of our schools are quality schools kind of generally. And ideally, we would get to the place that there are no gaps in between our schools. That is certainly the goal. And hopefully that is the direction that we're headed in as a school district.
Thank you. Bruce Beatty, we'll come to you next. what types of support should be given to those schools which are struggling with academic performance?
Well, um, well, a lot of things have already been mentioned, so I won't repeat those. But a lot of that will be handled through resource allocation, whether it be dollars or in various funding sources or instructors or counselors. That's the best way to address that. When we have processes, we currently have processes in place to sort of do that through the budget process. And when you're evaluating how schools are performing, when you look into that at a lower, deeper level, you're able to see what schools need currently and what they'll be needing in the near future or the next year, and just allocate resources accordingly to address those needs so that the students at those schools and the instructors at those schools get the necessary support that they need to get their job done and make the school a better school.
Thank you. Kelly Thompson, you're next here. What types of support should be given to those schools which are struggling with academic performance?
Yeah. I'd like to build on something that Mr. Beatty touched upon, which is I think we need to understand what's driving the low performance. And so we need to get a handle on is it teacher shortages, academic gaps, attendance challenges? What is the issue that we're trying to solve for? And then make sure that we're identifying the issue correctly so that we can put the supports in place, whether that's investing in investing in educators, you know, continuing to support these tutoring services or some of the wraparound services that our families need. But each school has a different need. Each child has a different need, and each school has its own community with its own specific needs. And we need to really dig in and understand what those are so that we're supporting the right things.
Thank you. Brittany Foley, you're next here. What types of support should be given to those schools which are struggling with academic performance?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going to echo a little bit that was said before. So I do like what the district has in place now through the policy 0.0 and Blueprint 2030. When I was talking to a lot of parents when Truth happened, a lot of people thought that Blueprint 2030 focused just on the closings. When it went into another measure. We're seeing how we can support our students holistically and what we can what we can do to make sure students in schools where there are reading problems or math problems get those interventionists that they need. So again, I look at data. What is the data showing that these kids need in the school? Are they having problems with reading? Should we send an extra reading interventionist? Should there be more funding towards after school programs, more ways we can send food home from kids? So when something is going on academically, there's usually something happening outside of our school walls that we have to target through wraparound services. So again, I would push through clear data. I'm a numbers girl, see what's going on and how we can target target each school to see what we're doing now and see where we can improve through the current policy or meeting with community members, things like that.
Thank you. Joe Nelson, you're next here. What types of support should be given to those schools which are struggling with academic performance?
Yeah, I'm going to start a little bit higher, broad picture, right? So if we know that some of our schools are struggling, and it doesn't really matter which areas, we could probably predict what they are, but let's say we don't know, we have to be high level. We should already have strategic partnerships throughout the community, throughout the region, that can help us analyze and then assist in handling some of these situations. So I'll jump on the analysis piece of that, right? So understanding what's really driving the disparity in the school, right? Is it something that's happening with leadership? Is within the culture of the school? Is there a rift in the environment where the teachers are not feeling supported? Or are we looking at external factors where the majority of the kids are coming to school hungry? We're not having enough heating and cooling. We're having issues with trash or safety outside of the school building, right? So, really, I'm a strong believer in asset based community development. So, going back to the community, making sure we already have these codified partnerships so that it doesn't matter who's on the board or who the superintendent is, right? If we have these structures, we can then adjust them and tweak them as we need to. And so, really leaning on the community to solve a lot of these problems, because it's not just about putting funding towards the resources, it's about finding innovative solutions and finding them quickly before they can become more problematic.
All right, thank you, candidates. So we're at the point of our forum now where we're going to give you all time for your closing remarks. You'll each have 2 minutes for those closing remarks. I want to personally thank you all for joining us. And I want you all to remember too, as candidates, to share the League of Women's Voters website with all your voters, encourage people to show up on election day and exercise their right to vote. So we'll do closing remarks. Maybe we'll start with the at-large candidates and then go sub-district 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 3, and 5, and go from there. So I'll start with Tanisha Ford as the incumbent, and then Joe Nelson, and then we'll go on from there. So Tanisha, you'll have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
I just want to thank again the League of Women Voters for facilitating our conversation tonight, as well as all those people that are going to be watching this now or in the future. Again, my name is Tanisha Ford. I'm currently serving as an at-large school board member that is seeking re-election to another 4-year term. Again, I am a wife and mom of 2 Kansas City Public School students. I'm extremely proud of the strides and improvements and the growth that this district has made underneath my tenure. We've seen growth in enrollment, we've seen growth in academics, we've seen growth in our graduation rates. There's still so much work to do. I've learned a lot in my 4 years and in my first term on this board. And so if reelected, I will be able to hit the ground running on day one, ready to serve. I have a good understanding of governance versus management. I have been a part of stability on the board. I've been a part of stability with our superintendent and the administration. And so I am just looking for the opportunity to continue to build upon the growth and improvement of this school district. I thank you all for this opportunity, and I just ask that you all continue to research every candidate, understand what there is to learn about us, what we contribute, and I just look forward to everybody coming out on April 8th and voting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joe Nelson, as the challenger at the at-large for the at-large seat, it is now your turn for your 2-minute closing remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. I again want to echo what a lot of us have said. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I am a member of the League of Women Voters. This happened long before my candidacy. So I really do applaud the work that we do in the community broadly. So you do not have to be a woman to be in the League of Women League of Women Voters. That being said, I really want to take the opportunity to think about a lot of the topics that we had as far as discussion. I think a lot of the candidates on the forum are in agreement on a lot of the issues, at least fundamentally, and we all want what's best for the children in the community. My stance on everything is about action and impact. And right now, I don't see that as what's happening. So I'm encouraging everyone to vote. Early voting is already open. Again, you can vote on April 8th. But as far as myself as a candidate, it's never taken me 4 years to move anything. When I was on Wall Street, I was in charge of international training within a year. Any of the military commands that I had, I was selected for early command. We were able to turn failing commands around in less than a year. So it's not enough just to sit on committees. it's about service. And again, it's about action and it's about results. And so if we want results that are different than what we've been getting, I'm the candidate for that. And I really do think that we're in a life and death situation. We're losing children every week. And I don't mean just to life. I mean, we're in life and death situations. I sit on KC360 every week, and I'm the only candidate that's there constantly in a city that's focused 75% of their budget on public safety.
Thank you. We'll move on to Subdistrict 1 and start with the incumbent, Rita Cortez.
Thanks. And thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening. I want to take the opportunity to share why I'm seeking re-election to the Subdistrict 1 seat on the Kansas City Public Schools Board. I was first elected in 2019 to advocate for quality education for KCPS students and to strengthen the connection between KCPS and the broader community. Over the past 6 years, I have done just that, playing a key role in driving progress and serving as board chair of these past 2 years. My leadership and experience will be critical as we continue moving forward, especially with what I believe will be a successful bond election. Here are some milestones that have been achieved during the tenure of the current board. Full accreditation, superintendent stability. We've had 3 superintendents over the last 12 years. We just extended the current superintendent for another 3 years. That is unique for Kansas City Public Schools and its history. Improving student literacy and math, growth across subgroups, rising graduation rates, increased enrollment across the district, including within Subdistrict 1, stronger board governance. You don't hear about the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Education on the nightly news like you used to. We're focused on the work and we have been effective. A new strategic plan, Blueprint 2030. 2 years of planning to bring to the public a general obligation bond issue, which 6 years ago, no one believed was possible for Kansas City Public Schools, laying the groundwork for what we believe will be an effective election. So with nearly 40 years of experience in law, business, strategy, real estate, and construction, I bring leadership that benefits our entire community in support of one core mission, ensuring all kids have access to and encouragement toward a quality education. I really encourage our community to focus on how we can continue to lift our kids up and bring the best out in them.
Thank you very much. Kelly Thompson, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you to the League of Women Voters as well. I'm not a politician. I am a parent, a systems thinker. I know how to ask those hard questions, to build solutions, and create the conditions for collaboration and follow through. I'm also living the KCPS experience, and that gives me urgency and empathy. Things need to move faster. So I am here to push transparency, accountability, and real progress. KCPS has made progress, but we need to be honest about where we are and where we need to go. Too many families are still navigating inconsistent communication, unclear expectations, and limited opportunities and resources. And so, again, as a parent in this district, I know how hard and demanding it can be to advocate for your kids and still feel unseen within the district. And so I'm running because our students deserve more, and so do our families. Our entire community does. And so I want to be able to make sure that our leadership matches the bright students that we have, the resilient students that we have, the quite amazing students that we have. They deserve the very best in leadership, and I want to make sure that I am there to hold our district accountable to outcomes.
Thank you. We'll move on to Subdistrict 5 and start with Brittany Foley for your 2-minute closing remarks, please.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, the League of Women's Voters. Again, my name is Brittany Foley, and I'm running for the school board for Subdistrict 5 because I have never waited for a title to do work that needs to be done. As the chair of the District Advisory Committee, I brought families and school leaders to the same table because I believe that solutions come from listening, not silencing, and bringing real life people who have been affected to the table. When our community needed answers, I started the school tours in 2030 to open up doors and to rebuild that trust in our neighborhoods. I plan to visit every school on the board so our neighbors can know what conditions our students are in, and to also see the places that have grown so people felt comfortable bringing their kids to our school. When Truist Elementary closed, I just didn't grieve. I organized and I advocated and I stood with every parent who felt the ground shift beneath their feet. I started the parent organizations. I brought people to the table. Again, I never, ever waited for a title to do the work in our schools. As a public defender, I fight every day for people who've been failed by systems, even schools. School records are the first things that I get. And as a mother, I fight even harder for my son and the kids that he plays with on the block every day that go to schools outside of our neighborhood. I have the track record, I have the relationships, I have the heart, and I'm not here to play politics. This isn't a game for me, this is serious. My son and his friends lost their school, and I never sat back and waited to run for office just to have a title. I'm here to protect our children, empower our families, and build our neighborhoods because Kansas City is so great. If it's so great, we need to invest in a quality education for every school and every neighborhood, no matter what. And I really hope you guys go out and vote on April 8th and research every person and not to take anything just because your neighbor says so. Research every person and go with your heart.
Thank you. Bruce Beatty, we'll give you your 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Okay. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and your partners for facilitating this forum and allowing us to share our thoughts on, basically just share our thoughts. I'm very supportive I'm a very strong advocate for modernizing our schools because having a safe learning environment is very important to me, for the students as well as for the teachers. I'm also an advocate for making sure that there is a strong link between our schools and economic development in the district. There's a lot of resources that are being redirected away from our resources, and we need to make sure we take the appropriate steps so that when things are redirected to improve the business community, it does not negatively impact our schools. Also, I want to maintain, because the board has, from what I've seen, they've done this for the past 5-6 years, and I want to make sure we continue to do this. And that's to make sure that we have a equitable resource allocation so that we can address some systemic inequities. That's something that they've been pushing, and it looks like they've accomplished a lot of that. And I think the last thing is I will be bringing over 35 years of experience in financial forecasting and budgeting to the board. And in light of the things that are happening to this, or may happen to this district from the federal and state level in terms of our resources, we'll need to have some experience on the board to help take care of that. And I hope everyone supports the bond and hope everyone comes out and votes on April 8th.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you to all the candidates. You've made my job as moderator very easy. You've all been very polite to one another and abided by the timer, and I appreciate that. It doesn't go unnoticed. I want to bring back Anitra Steele, the chairwoman here for forums within the League of Women Voters. Wrap things up for us tonight.
Thank you, Charlie, and thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience, for your interest in the April 8th election. A recording of this forum is available through the League's website, lwvkc.org, and Vote 411. Please take a moment to share our forums with your friends and neighbors and your social media channels. And remember, For candidate and voter information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks again, Charlie.
Thank you all.
Is the recording stopped? Janelle, I didn't hear recording stopped.